Hi, I'm Angified. I started Angified Presents.
We share the love of music.
It has been medicine and therapy. Nothing else worked.
It has saved many of us. With mental health, we need to open our eyes.
Hurt people hurt people.
We ask that you listen, comprehend, and relate with your ears.
Form that heart of unity and one.
We share on this stage.
Statistics, feelings.
And ourselves.
We stand with the belief to be you, to be heard, and to be original.
We all may be different, with opinions and beliefs.
At the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters.
We are family.
We ask that you join us in a magical journey with artists from around the world. Open your minds, let in the love,
and listen with your hearts.
We all want a better tomorrow. Be one.
Communicate and look out for one another. And then, and only then, will you find the world.
We will find peace in all the world.
You'll find the world. And you will find in this shining world. Heroes among us and every boy and girl. Many have been broken, red hearts turn black. Love will melt the ice and turn it back, and you will find the world. You will find the world. You will find
additional audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear, and MIDI too. How to write and compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac, and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much rev. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking We're talking IT. We're talking IT. Every Thursday night on Angified.
Whoa, we survived the blizzard of 2026.
I did. The snow is still coming up to right about here, but we're making it work.
Well, as long as it doesn't go up to your head, because that's a storm.
If I need a snorkel to get out of the snow, then we got trouble for sure.
I'm glad that it went smooth, because that was a pretty big storm, especially for you.
We got more coming too. It's supposed to get some this weekend, and I think there's more coming Monday, Tuesday. But where I live, it's all street parking, and I was telling you before, the main street is like it's a snow emergency route, so they have to plow it, so you have to get out of there, or you get ticketed and towed. On the side streets, like they'll plow down the middle, and then it's just a mess. Like every other, like there's a spot and then a mountain of snow 4 feet high, and then a spot, and so a lot of the spots are taken up. Everyone's fighting for spots, and got to do what you got to do.
It's a Royal Rumble.
It is. But I also have the benefit of I'm out at strange hours, so like when I go out there, I can go get a spot when there's nobody around during the day, for example. So not too bad for me.
All right. Well, we've got a nice variety tonight of topics. Some that are follow-ups. That Discord age verification thing we were looking at last week. Mm-hmm. It is going on in other areas too, but Discord, it looks like, changed their mind in the last day and I don't know if they're not going to do it now, but it seems like they're delaying and rethinking after hearing what the users feel like.
The backlash, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So to the IT cave we go.
Oh. There we go.
And this one got my attention actually a couple of days ago. He had a first video where he started talking about this topic of age verification being forced at the operating system level, which goes way beyond what we were talking about last week into crazy territory. And
again, it opens up different things. Two people using a computer, for example, that's it just doesn't handle that, or it can't really handle that at that point.
Wait till you see the fines that they want to implement and the software companies, the makers of the operating system, if they don't comply, which could put even Microsoft out of business if all of a sudden you got 30 million copies out there and you have to pay $7,500 a pop in fines. That's absurd.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
Yeah. And the reason I ended up going with this one and not the first video that got my attention, the Lunduke Journal, this is a nice compliment to Miss Crystal. With her, you get legal coverage and perspective. He's a journalist, and he's a tech journalist, and there's not enough of them out there nowadays. And he's finding out, like, what's actually going on with these laws, because California has one of these already, and it's set to go in effect 2027, January 1st. That's coming.
Yeah. Coming right up.
Yeah. And then speaking of Miss Crystal, you know she is covering everything, and the AI stuff is the where she's pioneering and figuring out what we're dealing with. We talked about AI music detection before. With Dweezer is the one who's kind of pioneering that, but there's a new one, and she's gonna talk about that and what's the difference between how they've been doing it and how they're gonna do it in the future.
Nice. And that's going to be a big thing, like you said.
Yeah, that all year we're gonna be talking AI because it ain't going away. And this toy, and it's not a toy, but man, this makes me rethink my like next laptop. That's a full touchscreen. That's a foldable. That's a virtual keyboard. It can turn into a second screen and everything. Responsive, fluid. I think I'd rather have one of these in the future than a traditional laptop, just because you can do so many different kinds of computing with it.
And it already looks like, as far as the learning curve goes, it looks like your standard laptop, just like it is. Like anybody walking by would be like, oh, it's a standard laptop.
Yeah, well, that's why I picked this particular snapshot, because it looks like a laptop with the keyboard. When you get rid of the keyboard, it looks even cooler, and you can turn it into a big monster screen, or you can flip it. And
I'm just even seeing, like you said, just flip it 90 degrees and use it like a book. You have one on each side, and it looks just like a book.
Perfect size for a book too. I could actually read shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we're going to shift into a little bit of music debate. This is the this versus that portion of tonight. And one of the battles or choices that we have talked about numerous times on the show and in the Zoom, bass guitar versus guitar, and which is easier, which is better to start with and then shift to. And my feelings. I think having a bass foundation or drum foundation are the best instruments to begin.
I agree. And actually, I think keys is also a good one to start with, because keys does have that left-hand foundation for the bass stuff as well. But in terms of instrumentation, like doing bass first leads you into guitar in terms of the thickest four strings on a guitar are the four strings of a four-string bass, like tuned the same way, same frets, same places. So if you can play bass, on a four-string bass, then you can play the same notes, the same lines on a guitar, just on the fat string. Same goes the other way. If you can play notes that sound like a bass line on a guitar on the lower four strings, you can just pick up a bass and play. So that's why a lot of usually it's the worst guitar player in the band becomes the bass player. They get demoted. It's like, here, you get the bass, and and everybody else is doing the lead lines and everything else. But
and he's gonna mention that.
Oh yeah, nice. There was one time that I actually made a comment to one of the guys in one of the bands that I was working with out in Pennsylvania, and I made a comment that I'm the fourth best bass player in this band because with Jeff Beck, my cousin, and with other people in the band. Like, we have numerous people who all played bass better than I did, but it was like, well, somebody's got to play bass, and I certainly can't play keys better than him, and I certainly can't play guitar better than him. So it was I'll play bass and you guys do that.
Jeff is kind of a hog, man. He's the best at everything in the band.
Yeah. Well, he loves his keyboard though. So we love to let him pick his lane, and he likes the keyboard for that. And he likes to come out for some guitar stuff now and then. Like when we do some Santana stuff, he'll come out and do some leads for that. We'll do Stevie Ray Vaughan, whatever. He'll come out and he'll do some nice guitar leads for us for stuff if we need him to. But at the same time, he's perfectly happy to stay at the keyboard if we let him.
It's nice to have the options.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So Sandy's gonna sound out on this debate of which is easier.
Yeah.
And then to complement it, the psychology of rock. Love this channel. When we were going through our psychology nights, and the mind of a metalhead or people who like all types of music. What's really going on? Um, Here, she's going to compare the brains of a guitar player versus a drummer, which
Nice.
is such a contrast sometimes musically.
For sure. A lot of different priorities in those mindsets.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes that gets set at a very early age. Like some are naturally drummer brain and some are guitar brain.
Sure. That I believe.
Yeah. And then to finish things off, we're going to take a look at Toontrack software because we all utilize different things that they have. And I actually watched this one with a couple of others in the Zoom that also use some of their products, Easy Drummer, Easy Bass. The Easy Keys is kind of new to some of them. That's one that they haven't gotten into. But what's cool about this video is it shows the Toontrack's workflow from Easy Bass to Easy Keys to uh, um, starting with Easy Drummer and utilizing Easy Mix. I mean, they have products that cover the whole songwriting workflow.
Right.
And they actually work together, and even the ones like who has used each of these individually, didn't realize that they actually integrate between the products really elegantly. I didn't either. I was like, "Oh my god, this video was worth watching because it's gonna save me a shitload of like exporting, importing time." Because it
Nice.
turns out there's an easier way.
That's always good. Yeah. Workflow improvements, removing steps that don't need to be there for sure.
Yeah, and if you weren't using some of those products, but using the other ones like Easy Drummer and Easy Bass, Jason's big on those. When he sees like how these actually integrate this way, he's gonna want them all.
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah. But to get going, this I think is big news. And what's amazing is this bill got in California actually got passed last year, and it's set to go into effect in January 1st. And not a word of it anywhere. I didn't see it any mention of these laws being passed that really people should know about.
Yeah. And that's the question.
Yeah. And this one's coming from at Lunduk, and he also has Lunduk.com. And like I said, he's a journalist, just like Miss Crystal goes at it from a law coverage. He's a tech journalist, and he's looking at what's going on in tech. This is a big deal because what this bill is really forcing is the software companies, the makers of the operating systems, to implement verifiable age identity as well as other personal information about the user that now they are storing that way. It's another point of compromise on an operating system because if the information's there, then a hacker can get to that information if they know what they're doing.
And what kind of verification are we talking? Are we talking 100% verification? Are we talking AI guessing at the verification? Are we talking about the same thing we had with Google where they know down to who's in the household as to who's on the computer based on the browsing habits? I mean, if they're talking about that level of knowing who's doing what, that's different.
In the case of the identification itself and whether they are of age or not, I'm guessing they're going to do like how Apple has kind of taken care of that, and how some of the phones, when it comes to like you need to activate your phone at a phone store, and they're the ones who are verifying you for that device. So technically, that you're responsible for that device. If somebody else, like you said, takes your phone or goes on that computer, this kind of enforcement could get carried away.
Because as you said, with the phone, like if I go to the phone store, which I've done before, like, lose a phone or need a phone replacement or whatever, upgrade, go to the phone store. The first thing they want to do is scan your license. So like they're going to scan your license. That's your age verification right there. So they already have that as far as the cell phone goes, so it's like, they already know who you are because you're paying the bill. They have your credit card info and they also have your license on file, just from if you've ever been in the store.
Yeah, but in the case of computers and every operating system, they're not just talking Microsoft here. They're talking all forms of Linux, Windows, Mac, Unix. How do you deal with the millions and millions of machines out there for developers and running as servers that aren't identities in this kind of operating system enforcement legislation?
Well, again, I think part of it also comes down to, if we're looking at it as the forest and the trees kind of a stuff going on here, we know there are bad actors out there. We know there are bot networks out there. We know there are all kinds of things that are going to continue to get worse over time. Also, the more we can narrow down, like, the more that you can identify that my machine is me, in an easy way, then that this machine is a person doing something, right? And then we can start from there and be able to shut down a bot network faster if we have a whole bunch of machines that we don't know anything about. We can't verify who they are. We can start by cutting that out and bringing in, whitelisting things on the way in rather than cutting everything.
Those machines would have to be considered exceptions, and
you whitelist by exceptions. I mean, like we used to do for the domain, punch a hole in the domain if you need to get something in, but you don't do that unless you need to, right?
Yeah. What I'm seeing their strategy is most likely to be is they get this kind of enforcement into something like the operating system. The devices start to be, you're going to see biometrics become more of a norm. In order to use your computer or your phone in the future, whether it's your retina or whether it's a fingerprint, you're going to have to verify in some way to a device, which is going to basically proxy for you an identity. So that way the kid gets on the computer, the kid gets verified as the kid, and all activity gets identified as that kid. The parent gets on and has to can't technically, for this to work, people can't use other people's identity, which means if the operating system forces you to, like, just like we click I'm not a robot, put your thumb down before you make a request, and you've got 5 minutes. If you don't do anything, it goes back. You need to put your thumb down again.
Yeah, and I mean, there've been in the financial world. I mean, they've been using thumbprint like that for 30 plus years. Because I remember setting that stuff up way back then. Having it running through the keyboard bus and doing things like that. But again, when it comes to anything regarding kids and using computers, again, it comes down to the household. It comes down to the parent. Like you're saying, like if there's a computer in the house that the parent owns, that the parent does things on that a kid should not see or whatever, then the kid should not have an account on the machine, or the kid would have a restricted account on the machine and no access to the machine unless they were logged into that account. I mean, there are ways to handle it, but it's not like, it's not like we should just assume that like my machine, for example, is just going to get accessed by some random kid, because no random kid has access to my house. I mean, I live alone and I'm the only person accessing this machine. So for me, linking me and this machine is fine, because I want
a compromised computer,
right, can be sniffed out. I mean, we can work. They could find that out in a second just from the habits, like you were saying. Like they know from what you're browsing and what you're clicking on if it's you or not. So they can already tell that it's not you, before you even know that it's been compromised. But again, the more that they can, it's about de-anonymizing, I think, because anonymizing causes problems socially, but it's also problems for, like I was saying, for bot networks, for attacks, for DDoSs. There's all kinds of reasons you don't want a whole bunch of random shit coming in. But if you can say, okay, this 60% of the user base, these are all confirmed user identity machines, these can stay on, and then cut these other 40 that we don't know where the hell they're from and see who calls to complain and start letting them in if we need to, one by one. That's one way to deal with it from that kind of a level, if there was some kind of a massive thing going on.
Yeah, and that does bring up the bigger question of, is an anonymity an absolute necessity for the internet?
I don't think so.
Or for computing in general. Is anonymity required in order to properly have an internet or devices.
See, here's the thing. Like there's people will argue that nobody should have your information entirely. Like nobody should be able to look and see your full name and your address. And
there should
blah,
be
blah,
a
blah.
level of privacy protection, just
Right.
like your accountant should like take care of your sensitive data so it doesn't get out there. The internet and the software companies, especially the operating system ones, do have a certain level of responsibility there.
Right. They have responsibility there. And that's what I'm saying about the non-anonymous. Like someone knows what's going on, like who's behind this keyboard. Like someone knows somewhere. And it doesn't have to be that you can find out, but it should be that if something illegal happened from here, someone would be able to track down very easily what happened here. And, maybe not at this exact house, whatever, but they'd be able to narrow it down to determine whether it was something that happened here or whether it was something that was done by a bot network somewhere.
And this is why digital forensics nowadays is the modern version of getting that mystery serial killer that we're chasing. Digital forensics kind of has to do that on a massive scale of troublemakers and hooligans on the internet.
And I think with AI, doing what it's doing with data and the speed at which it's climbing through things, I think that we're not far from a point where, basically they would know. We're not quite at Minority Report level where they know, you're going to commit a crime and stop you, from doing it before it happens, kind of thing.
Yeah. If we get to precogs, man,
we're not there, but like you were saying, they recognize the patterns, and the AI can tell you that, there's a 67% certainty that person's going to do something based on what we just saw them searching for.
Yes,
and we might get to the point that they're going to then come ask questions for that person.
Police should not overstep that probability and make assumptions. Otherwise, you will have like people getting arrested for looking like they're going to commit a crime,
investigation,
not actually
that's the thing.
committing the crime.
Investigation is not, you don't have to arrest them. You can ask questions, but by coming and sniffing around to people that might be considering nefarious deeds, that could be a deterrent.
You know what's going to be the missing link to making all of that possible and work? IP6. Mm-hmm. When they actually truly, they've been trying now for almost 20 years. When every single device is uniquely identified that way, you will start to be able to have that device identification that once you've established through the operating system or your Chrome account, because you do identify through that, mixed with that IP6, then digital forensics has a lot more information because they know your phone, they know your computer, they know your refrigerator.
Do you think they've had long enough to start spoofing that stuff enough by now? They can fake what your Mac is, they can fake what an IP is.
IP6 has been implemented to some extent, but the big problem with it is in order to truly get it to what it's supposed to be, which is a unique identity for everything, to get there, it requires the entire infrastructure to get there. And it's all this legacy. IP4 is still why we're anonymous on the internet.
Yeah. And as you say, new standards coming, could necessitate a move like this to get it to the point where we can get everybody on board for IP6 moving forward.
One thing's for sure, 2026, they're making moves that they haven't made like this in all the time that we've developed social networking and gotten to this point. Some of this stuff, I'm surprised, wasn't being talked about or implemented over a decade ago.
Yeah, well, we're kind of at the point where if we don't do it now, we're never going to be able to, and we're going to run into other kinds of problems that we can't get around without it. So
I think now when they see how crazy AI can add more chaos, it's bad enough to have teenage hackers out there with no remorse or responsibility. With AI doing it now, the problem is exponential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and fast.
Yeah, that's probably why those senators are we need to make these laws now.
And a lot of them, as we've said before, don't fully understand the technology behind it. And that's not a knock against them. It's not their area of responsibility. It's not their area of expertise necessarily, but they should, be open to the people who are experts in the field in order to get that information that they need. And I hope they're getting the expert testimony that they need from those people.
Yeah, me too, because when you hear what this is, as he explains it, I wondered, who did they bring? I mean, the typical likely candidates would be like the head of Amazon, or like, somebody from Silicon Valley who comes in.
I don't even want the head of the company to come in. I want the head of the tech department to come in, or the lead tech, let's say, to come in. I want the person who knows the answers to the question, knows the right reasons to ask the right questions of the right answer.
Yeah.
The CEO, he'll have a script in front of him. He'll tell you what you need to know. But if you're going to ask real questions and want real answers, you need to talk to somebody who knows, can we do this? Like, he should have an answer for that. A CEO will give you an answer, but it won't necessarily be the technically correct answer in terms of, is something feasibly possible?
In this kind of legislation, you kind of need both the tech experts on how can this be implemented, and you need the lawyers who are like, if we can implement it, can we get away with this? And once you start talking, once you start talking fines, how do you enforce fines, and will that actually work?
And of course, you would need to involve the C-suite, and you get the CEO involved in all that, because they would have to be the ones steering the ship in that direction in the first place. So.
Yeah. So Mark Zuckerberg, you should have been called in for something here. And Bill Gates.
Well, let's see what we got.
Yeah.
Yesterday, we talked about a new proposed bill in the state of Colorado, which would require all operating system vendors to implement mandatory age verification at the system level. So when you install an operating system or set up a new user account, you would have to declare what your age is with an ambiguous, unknown level of verification attached to that. And this would apply to every operating system from desktop to mobile. So not just iOS and Android, but Windows and Mac OS, Linux. I mean, from Ubuntu to Fedora, FreeBSD, FreeDOS, Haiku, NetBSD. Every operating system vendor that wishes to do business in the state of Colorado would have to apply to this, would have to adhere to this. And if they failed to do so, there was a fine of $7,500 per incident. And each incident was every person that didn't get the age verification prompt. So the more popular an operating system is, the higher the potential fine is. And when we were talking the fines at the level that would absolutely put Canonical, Red Hat, IBM, etc., completely out of business. Now, when I was reporting on this, many people began speaking up and saying, hey, there's this can't possibly pass. It's too absolutely absurd. No one's going to go for this. And here's something I wanted to point out to everyone. This is already law in the state of California. This passed back in October. It was known as California Assembly Bill number 1043, Age Verification Signals, Software Applications, and Online Services. It's a pretty catchy title. Well, that age verification law passed the state of California with absolutely everybody voting for it, Democrats and Republicans alike, the whole kit and caboodle. Everyone said, yeah, that's a good job. And Governor Gavin Newsom of California signed it into law on October 13th of this last year. So just, whatever that is, 3 some odd months ago. The law takes effect as of January 1st of 2027. So a little less, so what is that, 10 months from now, just shy of, or just a little hair over 10 months from now, all operating system vendors who wish to do business in the state of California are forced to implement age verification measures of varying types into their systems at the system level when a new user creates a user account. Now, this applies even when there's not user accounts on the system. I went through very carefully this really, really awful bill and tried to figure it out. Would this apply to, say, FreeDOS, right? FreeDOS is an open source, free software re-implementation of DOS. There's no user accounts on that system. This applies to that. If FreeDOS fails to ask the user what their age is and fails to provide an API for other application developers to query that age, technically, as of January 1st, 10 months from now, FreeDOS will be in violation of California Assembly Bill number 1043. Let me just read a little tiny bit to you so you can see exactly what's happening here. This bill, beginning January 1st, 2027, would require, among other things, related to age verification with respect to software applications, an operating system provider as defined to provide an accessible interface at account setup that requires an account holder as defined to indicate the birth date, age, or both of the user of that device for the purpose of providing a signal regarding the user's age bracket to applications available in a covered application store, and to provide a developer as defined who has requested a signal with respect to a particular user with a digital, I hate the way they word these, it just drives me crazy, with a signal, with a digital signal via a reasonably consistent real-time application programming interface regarding whether a user is in any of several age brackets as prescribed. The bill would require a developer to request a signal with respect to a particular user from an operating system provider or a covered application store when the application is downloaded and launched. And because the most ridiculous example, I think, is FreeDOS. FreeDOS has what would be called an application store. They have a simple application that lets people download open source DOS applications via a little interface. Because yeah, you can get network access on DOS. So therefore, it would need to comply with this. Acinide, NetBSD, Haiku, FreeBSD, Ubuntu, Fedora, Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, everything. Everything is going to have to comply with this in the state of California, and now Colorado is adding it in too. If you have this sort of bill in place, it has the same identical, by the way, fines. Both 7,000, I believe it is 7,500. I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it's 7,500 fines. $500,000 if you, $7,500. There you go. I said it right that time. If you knowingly don't have that feature implemented, like it's a choice, right? Right. It's not like an error made it not work. If you decided to not implement the age verification signal, age bracket functionality, you can be fined for every instance in both the state of California and Colorado once the Colorado one passes. This is devastating. I mean, there's several issues here. The first is, the concerns over simply having this sort of functionality into a system. Now, to be very, very frank about exactly how these bills are laid out, these bills are not as extreme when it comes to identity verification as many other bills are, right? These bills specifically require the user to make a good faith declaration of how old they are. However, it also leaves a lot of mushy language and wiggle room for how the states might interpret that sort of verification. There's a lot of, to the best of your abilities and the developers to, will make a good faith extra effort to blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of those sorts of languages in there, which suggests that the ultimate goal is to do additional ID verification of users, right? Now, but the problem goes much further than that, in my opinion, because this is the government telling software developers what features they must provide in their systems under penalty of such dramatic fines that they would go out of business. And it's done in such a way that that even the smallest of hobbyist developers, heck, if Terry Davis was alive, Temple OS would apply here. Terry Davis would then have to implement this functionality or be sued into utter oblivion. And that to me is terrifying. I do not like the concept of any government being able to declare, hey, operating system provider, hey, software developers, you must do as add this bit of functionality. This must be in the workflow of the user. This must be part of your user interface. You must provide an API for this functionality. And I just don't like that. I don't like that. It doesn't matter what it is. I don't like that. Now, I am all for things like good parental controls on an operating system. Great. Yes. Optional parental controls on an OS level are really, really handy. There's plenty of operating systems out there that provide this. Apple, Microsoft, many Linux systems provide the ability for a parent or a guardian to say, okay, I'm going to create an account that is a minor account. I'm going to limit what games they can install. I'm going to say that here's what applications they can install. In some cases, there's even, white or black lists for what websites they can go to. Great. Implement those as optional features in a system, optionally, not mandated by the government, but the operating system provider themselves provide them as a feature to say, hey, this is a feature that our system provides. We developed it optionally for you to use optionally, right? Great. Love it. That's good for everybody. It's good for kids. It's good for parents. If we're really talking about protecting the children, which gets trotted out a lot, then that's a fantastic way to actually protect the children. Provide optional, detailed, and strong parental controls on a system, completely optionally, right? Not mandated by the government, not forced to be turned on by default, none of that garbage. Just provide it optionally so when a parent sets up a computer or a phone or a tablet or a gaming console for their kids, they can turn on those systems, turn on those parental controls for a kid. That is a fantastic thing to do, and I love the systems that do it. I've got 3 kids. And my kids have video games. My kids play with all sorts of stuff. And my oldest kid is now of the age where she has access to, computers and smartphones and whatnot for the first time. My younger kids still don't. I make them grow up like they're in the 80s. They grow up like I did, right? So they're all offline until they get much older, and it becomes more of a requirement for schooling and that sort of thing. So my oldest kid, who really needs the access to those sorts of things, I still have some amount of parental controls going on, and those are all optional and well defined in the systems. And I turn them on when I feel that I need them for my kids. It works fantastically well. But none of those cases, like Nintendo's Switch's parental controls or the various parental controls on Android and whatnot, none of those are required by law. Those were all implemented by the developers who thought, you know what, this is the kind of features that they thought parents would probably need. And some of the features are well designed, some of them are not. You know how it goes. But they were implemented as they felt were best. Now, forget all that. The government is mandating exactly what has to be developed, how parental controls are going to work. It's going to apply to everybody. Everyone is going to have to declare their age and birth date and all this other stuff in the systems, whether they want it or not. I don't need my computer to know when my birthday is. In fact, I don't want my computer to know what my birthday is. Do I think there's anything necessarily bad that my computer is going to do because it knows when my birthday is? Well, probably not. But I still don't want it to know because I've been in software engineering for long enough to not trust it. I don't trust adding additional data of mine into the system if it's not absolutely necessary. And this is not absolutely necessary. I find this truly, truly frustrating. So I looked through the bill. It's not great. It's really, really not great. And it's going to be mandatory as of January 1st. So there's no there's no wondering, well, is it going to pass or not in Colorado? Well, if it doesn't, it's still law in California. That ship's already sailed, and it's a pretty horrific thing. So we'll keep tabs on exactly how this goes and whether or not operating system developers are actually going to comply with this, which ones will. And if the state of California actually starts to impose penalties for those that don't come next January, we're going to find out. Thank you to all of the subscribers to the Lunduke Journal for making it possible to do this sort of coverage. Go to lunduke.com and become a subscriber. It's fantastic. Monthly, yearly, and lifetime subscriptions are available. Lifetime subscribers can optionally be added to the Wall of Shame / awesomeness. There's in fact 4 walls currently. This one, and this one. Those are really good names for them. And there's a 5th wall that I need to get put up here. I did not finish it in time for today's show, but it will be up here within the next day or two. I'm a couple of days behind on wall number 5 and adding a few extra people to those walls. So if you're waiting to get up on the walls, don't worry, you're on the list. You'll get up there later on this week. Those walls will appear. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes, across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.
Oh, Brian. He thinks just like me.
And we are nerds for sure.
Well, everything he mentioned there, I mean, these are things we have, touched on over the last couple of weeks, talking about these things. Good parental controls, whether this should be legislated as a law versus being suggested as good practice. Let the developers do it because they want safer software. Don't have a country law forcing the developers. And
well, I do have a counter for that, and not specific to that, but it's just if you look at the percentages of the user base, let's say the percentage of people who need to be protected, the percentage of machines that are going to have minor accounts on them, that are going to have an adult putting the machine together for them, right? Of that group of people, what percentage of them, of the adults, are better with computers than those kids?
Yeah,
because it's a very, very low number. And for the most part, it's going to be the kids that are setting up the computers. So putting anything as it's in there, it's an option, we can set it up when we get the machine. Most of those machines would go out there with no controls because the kids are going to set up the account and set it wide open and be done with it because they know how to do it.
Most people buy their computers from stores where their account is already set up for them. And right from the beginning, like it's set up, it's identified, usually in a generic way.
And that's the thing. That's the point, is that, again, so many machines would be going out with no controls for the kids if it weren't mandated somehow. And I'm not saying that we have to make it a law like this. I'm not saying this law is the perfect one for it. I'm saying that I can understand why they went down the road of making a law for this. And I understand how the setting up as an option doesn't really cover the vast majority of what would be the problem cases, right?
Yeah, it's not a bad thing that they're actually opening up the discussion, trying some things. Honestly, I didn't think this could pass in Colorado. When I saw that first video, I was like, no way is this going to pass. California, that kind of blows my mind because that's tech central for a lot of companies that we're actually talking about here, or who will be drastically affected.
True, drastically affected, but I think a lot of them also probably understand what this is all, what this would be useful for going forward.
It's all about how it's implemented. And when you start throwing around $7,500 fines per use case on something like an operating system, there's hundreds of millions of copies of Windows in all sorts of flavors. Are we going to force the old operating systems? If I'm still on Windows XP, what's the rules there?
That was part of what we had talked about previously about the whether it's the planned obsolescence or whether it's just the every few years with Apple, for example, every few generations of the operating system that comes out will not purposely brick old machines, but old machines can't handle the update, right? So at a certain point, you can't use the old machines anymore, and you have to be with the new ones. So kind of like if we get to a point where in order to get on the internet, you have to have Windows X, Windows of this level or higher, or an operating system equivalent to Windows of this level or higher. And then at that level, if we've already implemented the age verification, then we already have locked in at the point when we make the computer, we know who's there.
I could actually see a whole new internet being created where in order to go on it, you have to go in through compliant devices, compliant operating systems, identified. And this is the clean internet where everything is controlled. There'll still be an underground internet. There will always be those who use old operating systems or don't do that or don't put their birthday, because I'm in total agreement with Brian. I never put my birthday into the operating system
Well,
information. It doesn't need to know me. It doesn't.
I'll
I
put my
am
birthday.
user. I am first name user, last name user. I was born in 1900 and 00.
Nah, see, 1900, you're causing problems now. You see, that's the
Yeah.
thing. Is like I will happily put my birthday in, but my birthday, oh, it's January 1st of whatever year makes me at least 21. I mean, whatever.
I
It
don't
doesn't matter.
I don't put that information into something that doesn't need it, like an operating system. I do that when I'm actually making a bank account.
Well, I'm saying my birthday isn't on January 1st, but when I make the
Mhm.
account, I say, oh, my birthday is on January 1st of whatever year makes, whatever, because that's obviously not my birthday. But at the same time, it's something that's valid and it means that I'm 21. So we're good as far as if that's their level of age verification. It asks me and I tell it, oh, I am 21, and I was born January 1st, whatever.
Yeah.
That's fine. It knows enough to put me in a bracket that is appropriate, and it knows enough to tell the API calls that I'm in this bracket and everything's good as far as that goes. And I didn't have to tell it specifically, detailed information about me because they're not verifying, if it asks me
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
prove, if they ask me to prove that my birthday is January 1st, that's different. But it's just
The fa
asking me, I'll just tell it. That's fine.
the fact that they're not verifying is the most compelling reason for me not to put accurate information because I know it's not being verified. And like operating system, you don't need that information unless I'm setting a clock, in which
Uh,
case I'll tell you what time it is if you don't already know.
As a bonus, my operating system wishes me a happy birthday on a random second day of the year, which is bonus.
Yeah, but so does Facebook's.
Well, no. I mean, like certain places know your actual birthday, so they will say happy birthday on your birthday. Certain places give you a discount or something extra on your birthday, so it's
Well,
worth checking around.
that's cool when you're at Dunkin' Donuts.
Ah, see, you know you know where I go.
Yeah. One day where he will drink twice as much coffee.
Yep,
So
exactly.
that's lunduke.com. Definitely check that out, because then whether you want to watch on this channel or that channel, he's all over the internet
Mhm.
covering tech. My favorite subject.
Yeah,
At Lunduke on YouTube, and very happy to add this to our like channel list of news. That kind of news,
absolutely.
I want to know whenever there's talk about that kind of stuff. I do care about legislation.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's so that we can have a conversation about it because there are, I can see legitimate reasons to want to know the information they're asking for. I'm not vilifying them for wanting to know the information, but it is an important conversation for us to all have. And as you mentioned, $7,500 per incident is probably not the right number, but depends on how, like, they obviously wanted people to take this seriously, and
Yeah,
that should
yeah,
be a wake up call to say, hey, we have to comply with this because that's how important they're saying it is.
yeah. I took it serious.
Absolutely.
And
As we should all.
speaking of those who take things seriously,
Mhm.
Miss Crystal, I've actually got all her YouTube channels in the description,
Yep.
but this one's coming from at Top Music Attorney, regularly visited here daily.
Yep. Definitely.
And on the AI side, when w- we've talked about the Deezer AI tool, which unfortunately there's enough false flags in there to say this isn't going to cut it. The industry is going to need something more than the Deezer approach. I'm thinking watermarks. These AI software companies, if you're going to make operating systems verify, these AI software developers are going to put watermarks in every track. If Suno gives you stems, every one of those stems will have a random watermark somewheres in it that will identify it as a Suno generated track. It's coming.
And is that a bad thing necessarily, or is that again getting back to just identifying where things come from, so that if something is AI generated, we just have it listed that it is, so that we know what we're dealing with?
I think it is actually a necessity in this case. It's like knowing that a Word doc came from an actual Microsoft Office and not Open Office or Google Docs. Certain things in data can identify like where it came from. Usually it's in the meta tags, but unfortunately meta tags can be changed. So this kind of watermarking wouldn't go somewheres where people are going to easily be able to find it. They're going to encrypt that kind of shit, and just like DVD encryption back in the old days, and fingers crossed they never figure out the algorithm.
Well, like when you mentioned the Word docs there, people aren't trying to like monetize a Word doc and claim it as something that they wrote themselves when it was actually the work of AI. That's I think where this is more kind
Word
of pointing towards.
Word docs have been used as evidence in court cases for major
sure.
crimes.
Oh yeah, as they can be. Yeah.
You got to be able to identify whether you're dealing with this, that, and was there a modification? Everything that you need to identify in the case of music. Was there AI? Did it make a track on this, or did it just suggest words? The words sound kind of stupid. You can't make a detector for that. You can make a detector for the actual stems.
and as the AI was first getting started with the video stuff, like the delivery of certain lines would give it away immediately. Like it might be really convincing, but like even when you did my voice doing Edgar Allan Poe, right? Like I'm listening to it, I'm like, I hear certain words or certain phrases that I'm like, I would never say that way, or the timing isn't right. Like on a certain word, just the pace feels off or whatever. And that's definitely something that they're working on.
It didn't articulate like you, which, especially when you hear that voice on a regular basis and you hear the AI version of it, it's hard for it to get accurate. But today's voice engines are way better than a year ago when we were looking at that.
Not only that, but I was also thinking about sample size. Like if I were to, like, if you just take somebody and you only give it that 30-second clip of somebody reading a sample script or whatever, it can get a good feel in order to get a rough estimate to do a video estimate. But if you took somebody like one of us, and you took, how many years of video that we have of us having this show, and you took all that and fed it to the AI. The AI now has, hours upon hours of us just literally talking, and all of the nuance of all of that, and the hand gestures and the timing and the facial expressions and all of that. It would be able to do very, very easily be able to do a very convincing video if you have a good sample size.
If you can teach it, then it can do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now if you do it and you need to identify it, and especially in the music world, I think this is a necessity in order for the fans and the musicians to be able to trust AI's existence and what they're dealing with. This has to get solved.
Yeah. Well, not to mention there are people who are real artists, and let's say they decided to use AI for something. There are people who are in their fan base who would just completely, be done with them just for using it once. They say, AI, I'm done with them. And it's not that many people, but there are some.
I think overall, eventually, there will be those who use it in one way and do what they do, making music, acknowledging that AI is a part of their process. And there will be just like two different internets. There will be a separate audience where you'll be able to say, hey, Spotify, I don't want to see anything from identified AI artists because I just want to keep my music real. They'll give them the option.
And that's kind of what we're getting towards there. Yeah.
I think most people will not turn that filter on because if they accept that they like what AI is producing, and as long as the artists are actually being transparent about it, and
that's the key for me.
Category.
Yeah. The key for me is the transparency. That's where, if it's an artist that is saying this is music that I made and it turns out it's artist or it's made by AI, that's what this kind of detection would be helping us with, is finding the ones who are misrepresenting what the art is.
There needs to be trust on both sides. The ones who feel like the AI is cheating and don't want any of that somehow they need to learn how to trust AI, because AI is not the problem. It's how people use AI that
Exactly. And how they
we're
represent how
all
they used it. Yep.
confused.
Yep.
So to the source of this AI situation and the legal side of it, especially, Miss Crystal's the best.
Absolutely.
This is AI detection software on steroids. New technology was just announced that can trace copyrighted tracks inside the AI generated songs, so meaning the AI outputs. This is not the same thing as like the Deezer technology that we've been talking about, where, you know, you can identify if something is an AI song. And in fact, there's multiple companies that have come up with this technology. This is different. So when I say this is AI detection, what this technology is doing is that it is estimating what was trained on in the original songs that were taken. So like it's going to say this percentage was used of this song, this percentage of this song was used into this AI output. So obviously this is such a weapon to have in the back pocket of these companies. And in our case, on behalf of independent artists, this is huge because, guys, as you know, our law office sued Suno and Udio. And over the last 6 months, we have a mountain of evidence of these infringing AI outputs, right? And then the original songs that we allege were taken, were stolen by these companies to train on, which by and large are going to be the music of independent artists. But still, having technology like this, where you use AI to identify the actual original songs, is pretty powerful. By comparison, we went and looked at Deezer's AI detection, and we go, okay, so right now Deezer is kind of like the major leader in AI detection software. You know, Deezer has used this for its platform. As you guys know, Deezer's like a competitor to Spotify for music streaming, but to detect AI generated tracks, because Deezer then flags them. Deezer then says to everyone on the platform, this is an AI generated song. So there's a disclosure, there's a labeling that happens, but then Deezer also excludes AI songs from being paid. And so it's a way, as Deezer says, to protect human creators and to make sure they get paid music royalties. That's not the same for Spotify. That's not the same for these other platforms. So if we compare then what Sony AI detection has done, which is what this is. So Sony's AI detection, it's a little bit different. It's kind of like sample detection. So if we try to make a comparison that like in determining in the AI output what it came from, what parts were used, that's how I would kind of compare this to. But basically, it's just going to be a tool to determine how much of the original contributed to the AI output. And this is huge, guys, because, you know what, as I look at this, I just go, these platforms are just insane to me that they would say in their contracts that they make you sign if you're a user, if you're an AI artist, they're like, all the liability is on you. If you get sued, if there's a problem because your output contains someone else's song, you're the one that has to deal with it. And that's what it says in the contract. That's insane. Well, for me, in this era where AI companies are like, we scraped everything, sorry, not sorry, to now companies and individuals can actually come and be like, no, here's the evidence with a beautiful degree of certainty on what percentages of what was used. So what Sony is claiming is that this is actually going to be able to identify the copyrighted music that is inside of the AI output. And it's not just now detecting this is an AI song, it's actually like giving attribution. Whose song was it? And to quantify it. So this is huge. This is a real detector kind of tool. This is a music business worldwide. Sony Group develops tech to track original music in generated songs. The development comes as AI companies come under increasing pressure over training their models on copyrighted material without permission. Sony Music Entertainment was among the major music companies that sued Suno and Udio for mass infringement of copyrighted material. And while some of the major labels have settled, Sony hasn't. We certainly haven't. And I would say, if you are one of these independent artists who has evidence that Suno, that Udio actually used your music because you have an output, please be one of many. Go to indieailawsuit.com. So Sony has this incredible technology in its back pocket, which will be helpful for its lawsuits. But I think the next step for Sony is that Sony is going to commercialize the technology, start licensing it out, right? A few of us might find it helpful. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment down below. I'm top music attorney, Miss Crystal.
Oh, damn good. What do you
Yep.
think of Sony being behind that? Is that not like the Fox checking the hen house here?
Not so much. Again, it's more about more comes down to why we're trying to identify AI generated music, and if it is to try to get the the human artists get them the compensation and not pay for the AI stuff, that's fine, and that's telling us the direction we're trying to go to.
Attribution.
Yep.
And that lawsuit she's talking about, where the artists who are suing Suno and Udio because they think their music was used in programming it, and they're not getting any attribution or attribution.
Any credit, essentially, But the thing to me also on that was that even a lot of the AI companies wouldn't be able to tell you specifically, what happened in the AI. It's a lot of a black box going on there, where they know what they fed it and they know what came out, but they won't tell us what they fed it. We're just looking at what came out, and so we're trying to determine what they fed it, but we can only guess, right? So, like, if you're trying to bring it down to an evidence and lawsuit level, how much can you prove? And proof is what it comes down to. Can you prove that it used your stuff to make this stuff? And that's where it's going to come down to, does it really prove that? And we'd have to see the evidence to see.
It would have to be solid in order to get to like an actual lawsuit. Just like they're trying to figure out whose identity is on what device. They want to know everything about data. Where did that data come from? How much of it came from you? And how much of it came from this?
And so much of this would be probability stuff anyway, where they're going to look at it and say, how likely is it that this generated the same exact, chord generation, chord pattern, melody, whatever that you had, and it gets, and it looks the whole thing, and it'll come up with a number, and that number will tell us whether they think it's likely or unlikely, but it won't tell us if it is definitive or definitively not.
Well, and there's going to be a false flag fudge level, just like with the legal system. I mean, it works, but it's not perfect. Sometimes they don't assess and assume things properly. And in some of this, there will be cases where somebody feels like, damn, I made this song. Don't say like AI has this much percentage. Sometimes it may be in the future, the chord pattern you're using. And some of that is part of the algorithm's idea of this is so typical that only AI would write that.
Yeah. And again, there's still also that 1 in a billion chance that it did actually randomly come up with the same thing that you actually came up with, and there was no connection at all. Like, it had no connection, no feeding of your song into the algorithm, but it happened to come up with your song. It could happen. It's very, very unlikely, but they'll tell you. I mean, again, they can't say 0% chance, but they can say it's very unlikely or it's quite likely.
And AI as a random songwriter is doing the same thing that a human does. I'm going to try this chord. AI as a programmed engine that you feed in 1 million songs and say, make your songs like this based on what you're listening to there. Just like we write based on what we hear and are influenced by, what the AI is doing there in a random approach is no different than the humans. But if it did use your songs to learn it, and it makes a song just like you would have, should you at least get some credit for programming that engine? If Suno is going to get a cut out of like AI sold tracks, because as a AI software company, if they're going to get a cut there, they're going to have to figure out how to cut from that cut to actually properly pay the artist that did teach that engine.
Well, it sounded like they were just going to not give any compensation to any AI generated music. So if you use AI, you're just saying I'm forfeiting the money from it, and it's just staying at the company level there.
Yeah. Well, at the moment, but AI music is coming, and some of it will sell. Some of it will actually get popular. It's already happening, so it's not a question of whether it's gonna eventually.
But as we said, the real thing, at least to me, is the identification. Like, as long as it is declared, and this is AI content, this is not AI content, or this was made with AI content assistance for the lyrics and whatever. Like, if bands are at least going to declare at that level, if they're using AI for those things, that's fine.
Yeah,
in my book.
And I see like tomorrow's record contracts, or you're submitting it to your distributor answering those questions, just like with YouTube videos now. Was there any AI content involved in this content? If you don't answer those properly, that might be the birthday question all over again.
Well, let me ask you this: how far away? Looking at where AI is now, and looking at how auto tune has come along, and looking at all the different things that we have currently, how far are we from any of us just singing at whatever level of singing ability we are, just singing a song into a track, and then telling the AI make it sound good or make it sound like Mariah, and have them
we're
just boom.
we're already there.
Yeah, exactly. And
Now,
I'm talking convincing.
We don't want to discourage future vocalists and future singers to not learn, because you don't have to. I mean, hell,
That's the trick. Yeah.
You don't need to learn math because calculators exist.
The principles are important, though. That's the thing.
My hopes is that, like, teachers and ones who know that they're dealing with possible future singers, encourage them to do what they're supposed to do. Learn pitch, learn timing. Don't depend on the calculator to do your math.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, is I've always been, math in the head kind of a guy. Like, the calculator's there for the really, really, messy calculations and big numbers. But, when you're doing physics and things like that, certain things you can estimate a lot. So there were a lot of times where, you can come up with a pretty close approximation to what you need to get for the answer, just from making a couple of assumptions. Pi, that's about 3, and then, you go from there instead of having to get down to 3.14, like, you just start from a slight
Don't get
approximation.
complicated. That kind of math, I have to use a calculator.
For me, I just kind of go with the rough estimates there to get us in the neighborhood. And then if we really need the precision for engineering stuff, then we're going to break out the calculator. Sure.
It's kind of like the measurements when you're building a house. There's a reason why you have certain tools and certain tapes, so that if you don't build the house at least to standards, half-ass houses fall down.
Yep, and always measure twice, cut once.
Yes. Otherwise, my dad would kick my ass if I wasted wood.
You cut 8 when it's supposed to be 10. What do you do?
Yeah. All Miss Crystal, awesome coverage always. There's always something going on every week to keep up with you.
And the pace is going to get more frantic as time goes on.
Yeah. Now, we're going to take a look at a gadget here, and it comes from a Freshie channel, Gadget Evolution.
Nice.
Because I love these gadget channels, and at Gadget Evolution, it has some really cool things in here. I actually almost had 3 that I wanted to look at tonight, because they're all toys that I want. But this would make the perfect laptop replacement for me. Its flexibility to be a traditional laptop. You can, it folds, so you can, like you suggested earlier, turn it into a book at night.
Nice.
Make it full screen, and you've got a giant 18-inch beautiful resolution. And cool. This Huawei is the company behind this one. Huawei is cutting edge. It's like what was it? Xiaomi.
Xiaomi, I think it was. Yeah.
These companies over there are cutting edge. They're building tomorrow's technology today.
Yeah, I like it. I was saying I like the look of that. It very much looks like a standard laptop when you see it, but I have a feeling it's going to surprise you.
Oh, and Angie's mentioning, that was almost going to be my full topic tonight. I do want to look at 3D printing. There's so much has evolved. That's so cool there.
Definitely.
But here, if I could 3D print one of these, I would. And I think not just on the big level like this, but you're seeing it now with the phones, the Apple Fold. Maybe not this year, but if this beats that, I would buy this first.
Nice.
Huawei recently launched a laptop that looks like it's from the future. It's thinner than your smartphone, delivers a massive 18-inch display with dual-layer OLED technology, stunning 3.3K resolution, incredible brightness and visual quality, and it literally folds in half. Meanwhile, Apple is over here like,
I want to talk about a feat that some may have concluded must be a mathematical impossibility. That's right, we're bringing Calculator to iPad.
You're kidding me, right?
I'm talking about the Huawei MateBook Fold, and it's completely rewriting the rules of what we thought was possible. This is what happens when engineers stop playing it safe and actually try to solve problems that matter. While everyone else is bumping up their RAM or adding more ports and calling it innovation, Huawei is years ahead and asked a way better question. What if your laptop screen could be as big as your monitor, but still fit in your backpack without breaking your spine? Speaking of display, this is genuinely where your mind gets blown. You're looking at an 18-inch foldable OLED that delivers 3.3K resolution with 1,600 nits of peak brightness. That's brighter than most TVs and sharp enough to make text look like it's printed on actual paper. But here's where it gets really clever. The dual-layer OLED technology cuts power consumption by 30% while tripling the lifespan compared to regular OLED panels. So you're not just getting a gorgeous screen, you're getting one that'll actually last. Now, I know what you're thinking. Great, another foldable that's going to be a gimmicky mess. But here's the genius part. When you fold this thing, it becomes a legitimate 13-inch device that's actually usable. Not some awkward compromise that makes you question your life choices, but a real laptop that just happens to transform into a massive screen when you need it. The engineering behind this thing is absolutely insane. At 7.3mm unfolded, it's thinner than most smartphones, yet somehow they managed to house a complete computer with advanced cooling inside. The water drop hinge lets you open it one-handed and holds any angle between 30 and 150 degrees without wobbling like a broken desk fan. It's so smooth, it almost feels magical. Now, I know you're going to ask about the crease, because let's be honest, that's the elephant in the room with any foldable display. Here's the thing. Looking straight at it, you genuinely can't see or feel it. Only from extreme angles does a faint line appear, and honestly, you'll forget about it after 5 minutes of actually using the thing. But the real magic happens with how you interact with this beast. When it's flat on a table, it's one seamless 18-inch touchscreen that responds like your phone, just massive. Fold it slightly and watch this. The interface automatically splits into upper and lower zones without you doing anything. It's like the laptop is reading your mind. Want to move a window from the top half to the bottom? Just 3-finger swipe down. Want to expand something across the full screen? 5-finger pinch and watch it spread like butter on warm toast. It's intuitive in a way that makes traditional laptops feel like you're operating them with oven mitts. The virtual keyboard is surprisingly good. It has haptic feedback, sound, and vibration that make typing feel natural. There's even this clever gesture where you can swipe across the delete key to erase entire lines instead of hunting and pecking like you're playing whack-a-mole with your mistakes. But if you're like me and prefer the feel of physical keys, the magnetic keyboard snaps on with this satisfying precision that makes you want to do it over and over again. The moment you attach it, the interface instantly shifts everything to the top half. This creates 4 genuinely useful modes that make sense. Laptop mode for traditional work when you need to pretend you're being productive. Tablet mode for that full 18-inch experience that makes reading documents feel like flipping through a magazine. Tent mode with the built-in kickstand for presentations where you want to look like you're from the future. And book mode when folded for reading or taking notes like you're holding the world's most expensive notebook. For creative work, you finally get canvas space that makes editing feel natural instead of like you're trying to perform surgery through a keyhole. And for entertainment, watching Netflix on an 18-inch OLED with 6 speakers is genuinely cinematic. You can even swipe videos vertically or horizontally for the ultimate viewing experience that makes your phone look like a postage stamp. The 1.16 kilogram weight means it won't destroy your shoulders during those long commutes, and the 74.69 watt-hour battery with 140 watt charge keeps you working without constantly hunting for outlets like you're playing some twisted scavenger hunt. 2 USB-C ports handle everything you need, and the fingerprint scanner in the power button works so fast you'll think it's reading your mind. Now, let's talk reality, because I'm not here to blow sunshine up your laptop bag. This thing costs $3,300 for the 1 terabyte model, or $3,700 for 2 terabytes. Yes, you're paying for technology that literally doesn't exist anywhere else. But damn, you could buy a Ford Explorer or a Mustang for less than that. It runs Harmony OS 5, not Windows, which means you're adapting to Huawei's ecosystem instead of Microsoft's familiar chaos. Some apps you rely on might not be available. It doesn't come with Google Play installed and doesn't support Google mobile services ever since Google banned Huawei back in 2019. But you can install Windows 11 on top of Harmony OS, which would allow you to access Google Chrome and other Windows-compatible services. Global availability is limited due to various trade restrictions, so getting one might require more effort than ordering pizza. And while the dual-layer OLED addresses most durability concerns, foldable displays are still relatively new technology, so we're all kind of learning together here. The MateBook Fold isn't trying to be everything to everyone. It's laser focused on solving real problems that creative professionals and power users face every day. Once you experience having 18 inches of screen real estate that fits in your backpack, going back to a traditional 13-inch laptop feels like trying to edit a movie on your smartwatch. Sure, it's technically possible, but why torture yourself? This is what innovation looks like when engineers actually listen to user frustrations instead of just chasing spec sheet numbers. Huawei didn't just build a different laptop. They reimagined what portable computing could be and somehow made it work flawlessly in the real world. What do you think? Drop a comment below and let me know if you'd actually use something like this, and make sure to subscribe for more honest reviews of tech that's actually worth your attention and your hard-earned money. And watch this next video.
Oh yeah. I think they should send us 2 and we can check them out and we can give you a full review.
Hell yeah, I want to look like I'm from the future.
That kickstand, yeah, the 10th option, sure. I like that.
All the options. There's
Yeah.
a lot of creative thought into that design, because I would use every single configuration.
This is not a knock on the design in any way, but one thing that I will see is people will go to close it with that magnetic keyboard inside, and I'm curious how the hinge or the screen reacts to that. And again, this is not, I mean, I love the design, I love the look.
Probably doesn't work with it in the middle.
Well, I'm gonna say if you close it, you're gonna probably snap either the screen or the hinge or the keyboard. Like something is going to have a problem if you try to close it with that keyboard in there. But that's one of those things that you don't do that and it's never a problem. But they're gonna get that call at some point.
Yeah,
you just know some user's gonna do it.
I have heard good things about the Harmony OS, but hearing that it can dual boot, and that because when I first saw it, I was like, just like that Steam Deck guy a couple weeks ago. If I was to bring something like this on stage to do the VST work and things like that, if I can boot it to Windows, I mean, I'd be careful with it, but at the same time, I'd rather have that and be able to do it like that without a mouse or trackball. That would be handy on stage.
Yeah. Oh, I could totally see that. But as soon as they were saying Harmony OS and it doesn't have Windows on it, I could just see Tony like, oh,
yeah, but
like, oh, but
you can dual boot, and I'm cool with dual boot. Like I can't run both at the same time. I don't need to.
Totally fine. I'll do the things I need to do over here, and I'll do the things I need to do over there.
Yeah. When it comes to some things like video editing and other things where, I like to have 2 screens. I could see doing touch gestured video editing real quick with something like that.
Oh, absolutely. Not to mention, like you were saying, learn the surfaces, the MIDI control surfaces that it can learn. You've got all kinds of surfaces that you could use as control systems for video editing, scrub wheel, etc.
Could actually put a keyboard on the bottom or drum set, drum pads.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of options, man. A lot of options.
That I'm curious as to the response on the touch, because I mean, Apple kicks everybody's ass when it comes to responsive touch. I've seen Cole Seth turn an iPad into a drum machine.
Yeah.
I've never really seen that in any other touch where you can actually turn it into an instrument.
To tell you the truth, the iPad that I had, and I haven't had an iPad in a while now, but when I had one, I had GarageBand on it, and I would put on either the guitar mode or the easy or the keyboard one, where it's basically there's a bunch of different buttons, but each, like if you're hitting a C chord, there's like 6 different zones, and the lowest one would be the lowest C chord, and then as you go up the different zones, it would just be the different intervals, or there's different.
Colseth has 3 keyboards layered so that he can. It's like doing organ, you know how like,
exactly. And you make the little chiclet keys like really small. Yeah, I would play it that way sometimes, but I would set it up with the smart guitar so that it would have the chords, and you could actually strum across. And just like, as you strum, it would sound like an acoustic strumming across. And I could play like, Redemption Song by Bob Marley. I would have like, just the chords set up, and I could go through, and it would sound like I'm sitting there strumming an acoustic guitar. And it was legitimately playable and sounding like an instrument. And this is 20 years ago, 15 years ago.
I was going to say, even the first iPad was impressive as hell. I mean, they've just gotten better and bigger. But right from the start, the touch was so good. I played a virtual piano on the first generation.
Yeah, and then they got into the whole, the drummers, where it was the different grooves or the different personalities for the different drummers and all that. That added another layer that was excellent as well.
Yeah, GarageBand is fun in that sense, and it does it's a great way to like get started in digital recording, and it's no wonder there's more musicians than ever, because there's a lot of people with iPads.
Good inspiration. Exactly.
Yep. So at Gadget Evolution Freshy Tech channel, and I'm sure he covers the Apple stuff too, because I see some thumbnails there.
Oh yeah, sure.
I will be back. I love my gadgets.
Nice.
And we also love bass and Sandy's guitar. So I felt like this was a good one. These next 2 are kind of like this versus that videos, and the bass debate versus the guitar debate better than anybody, because you actually do switch between them.
I do. And that's one of those things where it also, I would say, it depends on the style of music. Where when I started getting into bass, for example, I was getting into listening to the blues, and the blues has a very simple structure, and the bass parts are usually very simple. You're, even if it gets fancy, you're getting fancy inside of a very simple structure. So you don't have to learn a lot. You're not learning, all kinds of jazz extensions and stuff to be able to play blues bass. So to me, it was a good place to start.
And the funny thing is if you want to be a fancy musician, no matter what instrument you're playing, the ease of learning it, and fancy's all about having balls. Like in order to like be fancy, you got to be willing to experiment. Like,
oh yeah,
I know the root notes, and now let's see what happens if I walk up real quick.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is being unafraid to do that is huge. To me, it's about take the idea of dancing like nobody's watching, and take that approach to your playing. That's the thing, because you want to basically just, play like nobody's listening, because if you make bad notes or whatever, you might accidentally stumble into something that sounds really cool, and you figure out, oh, how did I do that? And you figure it out real quick, and now that's in your arsenal. You could break that out at some point and, make that sound and make somebody else go, oh, that was cool. I've never heard anyone do that.
Yep. Otherwise, envision them in their underwear. It gets easier.
That's always fun. Yeah.
Yep. So at Sandy's Guitars, yes, I'm there, Sandy. You are forever in our channel list now. And I have to include him, because he's asking the question that I have asked myself. Starting instrument, first instrument you learn before you go learn all the other ones and become that fancy musician. My feelings, bass and guitar, perfect instruments for that, like, little kid that wants a foundation before they go get 6 strings, or like you said, keyboard is a good one too. But I felt I would have been a better keyboardist if I actually had started on the bass. I never understood my bass side from the bass approach.
some of it can also be your environment as well, or what kind of music you're surrounded by. Like in our house, like my dad was an amazing classical pianist, so it was always, Chopin was always being played around the house, and Beethoven, and just all that kind of stuff. Whether we were listening to it or whether he was actively playing it, it was just always there. So that by the time I was old enough to start playing, I was playing, at a very, very young age, and took lessons for at least 10 years, through my childhood. But then I just kind of dropped it and never went back for many years, until I've started to, re-pick up keyboard now. And some of the old pieces come back to me now in bits and pieces from the muscle memory and from remembering, oh, it sounded like this. And I can kind of walk myself back into a song I haven't played for 30 years, just right quick like that. But it's one of those things about piano. But again, I think it's about the environment. It was a very conducive environment to me playing piano when I was young.
If you see a parental adult doing it, especially as a kid, you want to do it.
Exactly. And so that's kind of where that all came from there. And the whole branching out into guitar and bass, that was more, decades later. The guitar more in my 20s and early 30s, but it was also just kind of messing around a little bit here and there, where I knew a couple of songs, I knew a couple of chords, but I never really did much with it. I think I took 3 lessons in the early 90s or something, and never really anything since.
Yeah, they didn't force you in school, like in grade school.
In grade school, I did trumpet.
Fifth grade, they made everybody pick something.
I played trumpet in 4th grade, so there was that 1 year of playing trumpet.
And
actually, I want to get back. I want to get back to that. Actually, I want to get back to horn or violin. Like, I've never played violin, and I played trumpet for that 1 year. But in playing or in working with some of these bands, like, they have a horn section, and like, I'm watching the horns play, and like, their parts or what they do all night, it's not that difficult. And I'm not, downplaying anything they're doing. It's complicated. You have to do it right, and it's not easy. But it's something where, their part sounds so complicated and so good, but it's the 3 of them working together like a whole orchestra, getting the parts all put together the way they need to be.
There's a certain level of physical exertion there. That he's going to actually talk about that in the bass guitar sense. Like, you have to
do a bass workout.
Yeah. When you're doing like things that actually take breath or singing, depending on what kind of singer or like musician you are there, some people could give themselves heart attacks playing.
Yeah. Well, there's also the fact that, like, if you have a cold or something, like, you would have to cancel a show if you're a singer or a wind instrument player, versus if you're playing guitar or bass, you can have the sniffles and still play guitar or bass. But if you're trying to blow a horn or you're trying to sing, that could be a problem.
Especially a tuba.
Especially a tuba. My cousin played the tuba. Yeah. It's not a tuba.
It's not a tuba. All right. Well, we're going to answer that end-all final debate question. Is it easier to learn bass or guitar?
Yes. Let's find out.
Are we getting into this? All right, let's do this. Hey guys, Sandy from Sandy's Guitars, and if you clicked on this video, you know what we're talking about today. So is bass easier than guitar? Are bass players lesser musicians? Well, no, they are not lesser musicians. And with a couple caveats, bass is not easier than guitar. So I've been hearing this debate ever since I picked up the guitar in the first place. Okay, the amount of times I have heard that, oh, all bass players are failed guitar players. It's bull. It's nonsense. All right. Now, where it comes from, okay, is, in my opinion, this is in my opinion, okay. First off, if your entire goal is to start playing in a band, there is less barrier to entry if you are a bass player. The fact of the matter is, if you want to get into a band, a lot of the time you really do just have to play the root note for the song, okay, Okay, and that part is frankly pretty easy. Okay, if you can count to 4, you can do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, that part is pretty easy. okay? So for a lot of guys, if their entire goal is to get into a band and start playing, okay, the bass will get you in there quicker. The other reason this whole debate is so common is because a lot of bass players who are in bands also play guitar. And you'll hear so many stories, I've heard it literally hundreds of times, where the bass player says like, oh yeah, you know, I was going to play lead guitar, but we had a couple of guitar players, so I decided to play bass. Okay? That happens all the time. Well, the reason for that, okay, is because there are a hell of a lot more guitar players than there are bass players in this world. Okay? So, many professional musicians, if they primarily play guitar, they may go to bass because, quite frankly, it's the easiest way to get gigs. You want a perfect example? Carol Kay. And I defy anyone to tell me that Carol Kay is a bad musician or just picked up the bass because she couldn't play the guitar. If you have heard her play guitar, holy crap, she was incredible, okay? And she's also an incredible bass player. One of the most, if not the most, recorded bass players in history. So a lot of guys, a lot of musicians will pick up the bass and they'll play bass publicly because it's the easiest way to get work. Now, here are the reasons why I think that a bass player, in a lot of cases, are actually better musicians than guitar players. And frankly, they deserve a heck of a lot more respect, and this whole debate is dumb. First off, the bass is just physically more difficult to play. Now, I'm kind of cheating here because this is actually a short scale, all right? But most basses, the damn thing's going out to here. So if you're a guitar player, you better get used to playing out like this, all right? Also, these strings, it takes a lot more physical energy and physical exertion to actually play this damn thing, all right? Every time I pick up a bass when I haven't played the bass for a while, I get blisters on my fingers within days, okay? Without fail. It is the easiest way to get a blister, all right? So, yeah, it is physically more difficult instrument to play. Now, another reason is most bass players that I've actually met, from what I've seen, they often have a lot better knowledge of music theory than any guitar players. The fact of the matter is, for a lot of guitar players, especially the lead guys, if they're, playing around, you can get remarkably far on guitar with very little music theory, okay? As long as you know those patterns. Okay? But the reason a lot of bass players often have better music theory knowledge than guitar players is because for a lot of bass players, when they're in a band, they actually have to write their own bass lines. Unless they do want to be, that's just that guy who goes root note, root note, root note, root note, right? Okay? So the only way they're able to write these bass lines is with knowledge of music theory. Now, another reason a lot of bass players are often better musicians than guitar players is actually, it has to do with timing, okay? Guitar players, if your timing is a little bit off, look, obviously it's ideal for every member of the band to have perfect timing, okay? But if you're the bass player, you're not a bass player if you have bad timing. It doesn't work that way. So your timing has to be perfect, okay? And I mean, case in point, a lot of guitar players, the minute you put a metronome in front of them, they freeze because they don't know what the heck they're doing. Now, another reason why I think a lot of bass players can be better musicians, why bass can even be harder than guitar, has to do with some of the more advanced techniques, okay? Yes, if you have a bass player who's just going to sit there and play root notes and hit them with their finger, okay, that's fairly simple. But when you start getting into that slapping stuff, when you start getting into a lot of the more advanced techniques, it gets complicated very fast, okay? Check out Victor Wooten, guys like that, or Flea, okay? The techniques that they have developed took them years, and they're incredibly advanced. And the final reason, I think a lot of bass players actually have to have a lot better ear than a lot of guitar players. A bass player has to keep in mind what everybody else is doing, okay? While the singer is up there singing and showing off and crooning to some girl, and the lead guitarist isn't even paying attention to the chord changes, okay? The bass player is sitting there going, okay, what is the drummer doing? What chord changes are there? They have to have an adept ear to make sure that they're keeping up with exactly what's going on, because they're the driving force. Anyway, I see this debate every time I go online, and I figured I'd add my 2 cents. And I also mentioned in a previous video, it was like, what was it, the 10 debates, my take on 10 debates in the guitar world. And this is the one that I said I'd save for video. Well, here it is, okay? Anyway, if you disagree with me, that's fine. We can still be friends. Leave a comment, yell at me in there. It's fun. But anyway, okay, please like, subscribe, share the video, and keep practicing. You're getting there. This is Sandy from Sandy's Guitars. Take care.
Oh, I actually had fun agreeing with you, Sandy.
That's right. That's right. And yeah, I agree across the board there. Good stuff.
Yeah. The exertion part of it, especially when you're first trying fretted instruments, and me and Jeff were watching some of this last night, and he explained to me he has a band, Years of Callous, which it never connected to me. That's why he named the band Years of Callous. It's it takes time to.
It does. To build it up, and you can lose it very quickly, like you said, if you don't play for a little while and then you pick it up and start playing. I mean, I haven't played that much in the last couple of weeks. It's wintertime, we don't get out as much, we haven't gotten together as much with the other musicians, so I don't really play around the house as much as I used to. So when I went over and had a rehearsal a couple of weeks ago, and the bass amp was cutting in and out because I had a bad cable over at his house, so when it would cut out, I just said, no big deal, I can still hear what I'm doing, but I'm playing a lot harder than usual. I'm digging in more than I should. So the 2 fingers that I used for picking, like as I get in the car and as I'm going to go home, I'm like, oh, developed big blisters on there from having not doing. But one thing I was mentioning to somebody else was a good way to avoid that. Actually, I was talking to the bass player from one of the bands I was working with, and I was telling him I use the seatbelt, where as I'm driving along, because it's the picking hand, where I can just be like thump, 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 like, picking back and forth, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Kind of warming them up before.
Basically, yeah, like the seatbelt where it goes across the chest here. That's my right hand. Like I'm always driving with my left hand only anyway, because I'm used to, even if I had a driving a stick shift or whatever, I would be shifting with the right and steering with the left. So it's left hand only for driving. So the right hand is doing nothing anyway. But I would just sit there and just doing like, a song coming on that's got a fast bass part, and I'd just be sitting there with the fingers on the seatbelt because it feels similar. You're getting that same friction, and it's 5 minutes of that in the car, and it's like you played bass for half an hour.
You're toughening them up a little bit there.
Yeah, and it's very effective for that, because I was doing that for a while, and because I was spending a lot of time in the car, and I wanted to be playing music, so I had music playing on the radio, and I would just basically play along, get my right hand working at least with the parts that I need to figure out. And when I would get home, I could be listening to a song I've never played on the bass before. And after hearing it in the car and after working with my right hand, with the timing, when I get home, it's very easy to just pick up the bass and just pick up where I left off. And all of a sudden I know a song that I didn't know when I left the house.
Yeah. Now, what did you think of his assessment on bass players tend to know theory better and have better ears? Like they actually are paying more attention to other parts than I've noticed sometimes with guitars. Some guitars, if you get the like flashy lead guitars, I don't think they hear anything but themselves. They assume that the rest of the band is following them. But great bass players are kind of like the background conductors of bouncing off the percussion.
Definitely. And
filling
there was
that guitar.
And when he mentioned Victor Wooten and Flea as good examples there, with Wooten, there was one part of one of his master classes that they basically, we talked about it before, where they were basically trying to have somebody play a bass solo, and they wanted to show them that you can, by being the background guys, they could actually make the crowd know when to applaud, right? So like the idea was they built it up like the guy was about to start soloing. So they just went into a little chord progression, and they kind of, got something going and then kind of backed it off, where Victor was playing, just a very simple little bass part. And the other guy, I think it was Anthony Wellington, was playing guitar chords basically, but on the bass. And then this other guy was doing a bass solo, right? So they start into it, and then as soon as he starts into the solo, they back off a little. So they're playing quietly, but they're still playing. And then as he's, getting towards the end of his bass solo, they start building and building and build to a big crescendo, and then and come right out of it. And you just know the crowd.
And that does make the crowd subliminally want to roar.
And it was a very powerful demonstration of that principle where they just basically took, it wasn't a song even that they were playing. They just basically started, he's going to play something going around real easy. They played something around real easy, but building it and then taking it back away, like really showed the way to manipulate that aspect of music. And it was a good demonstration of that. But Flea also, for the slapping techniques, all of that stuff.
That's the advanced stuff he was talking about. That to do that is way more complicated than a lot of guitar stuff.
Exactly. And the ear part, having a better ear to be able to hold everything together. Definitely. I've seen bands that are basically held together by the bass player, where I've seen, some bands, it's, the bass player is, like he was saying, somebody who just found it would be easiest to get in that way. It's a guitar player who,
if I had a nickel for every bassist I know who was the guitarist who ended up having to fill the bass gap, man, back in high school, there, like each week, it seemed like there was a new bass player being in a band who wanted to be a guitarist.
And that's the thing is, of those, when you do get that guy who is a guitar player who's filling in on bass and he's mad about it or whatever, sometimes they really do. They play too much. They overplay on the bass. Like they're playing guitar parts on the bass. Like you put a bass in their hand, but they're still a guitar player. Like they're playing guitar parts. They didn't turn into a bass player immediately, but the really good ones can shift role, and all of a sudden now they're playing the supporting role as a bass player. They're connecting with the drummer. They're keeping that glue together to make a foundation for the guitarist and the other instruments to do whatever they're doing. And that's the idea, is the bass player needs to know their role in the band in terms of making that foundation for everything to kind of work together.
That's like
timing, though. Timing is everything, as he said. Timing important.
That's like my buddy Scott, because he is as much a good guitar player as he is a bass player. He knows how to separate the roles and get into, and he did become a bassist because they had 3 guitarists and he got the demotion.
And sometimes people would take that demotion, on purpose, where they would say, okay, I will move to the bass because I think that, I would invest the right amount of, the right amount of whatever into the bass role. Where I was saying some guys, they would be shifted or demoted down to bass, and then they would just basically be already looking for another band. Like they're okay, fine, I'll do the bass, and then their heart's not in it, and they're already looking for somewhere to get out and go play lead guitar somewhere else.
Well, and here's the irony: he did end up looking for another band because that's how we formed Nightmare, but he came in as the bassist. He embraced the bass.
Exactly. He embraced the role. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I like it.
Oh, not Scott bass. Scott Morton is the my high school bassist, and a man of multiple instruments.
Nice. Always good to see.
Yeah, those dudes we like.
Yeah. And when it comes to guitar parts, like to using the multiple instrument stuff, like there were a couple of times where I took a Grateful Dead song that I really like and I wanted to cover. So on BandLab, I went ahead and I replaced all the different layers, right? So I started with the bass part and I put in my bass part, and then I went back and I did the Bob Weir layer, and then I went back and I did the Jerry layer, and I went back and did a keyboard layer, another keyboard layer. But being able to like listen in and home in on what each of those layers is doing, and trying to figure out that like Bob is just doing these little like like these little melody lines that don't sound like anything, but when you put it in the context of everything else that's going on, all of a sudden it all comes together. So breaking the songs apart like that, I guess my point is breaking a song apart like that really helps to help understand what each of those layers is trying to accomplish and each of those roles. To me, playing bass so much as I have, I understand the role of the bass part and I understand what I'm listening to in the other parts. But if you put a guitar in my hands, I am now starting to be able to, see you to let go of the bass part and try to just play the guitar parts and the accent here and there, cover some chord stuff, fill in behind the soloist, all that kind of stuff. Try to fill all that stuff.
The greatest bass lines, whether you're talking rock or even classical music, the greatest bass lines bounce between high little flutters and low holds, and the most creative ones do both of that. They're not just there for the bottom end.
Yeah. And also, they're not just there for fast 16th notes. But that's what you get when you put the guitar player, who's like the speed metal guitar player, and you put him as the bassist, you're going to end up with a...
I was going to say, I'm talking to you, Flea, but I know you're not a guitar player.
Yeah. And he does it right.
You're
He does
just
it right.
a maniac.
He's a maniac. That's true. In the best way.
So at Sandy's Guitars, welcome to our channel subscription. Good addition for guitar nights. He's got a ton of killer guitar videos, and he is covering AI too.
Nice.
We may be back for multiple reasons.
The brains.
And this is one we've been back to a couple of times for different nights, whether we were talking about certain types of musicians or music appreciation. The psychology of rock is such a Nina. She's doing a lot of neuroscience research and part of it's psychology, part of it's physical brain. Like why are creative types this way, and music people are just better. Ooh. I like the one she's got pinned right now. Shit, I wish I saw that one. But the one I wanted here is a compliment to just like this versus that. And in a band, guitarists and drummers really is where you see like very different personalities. You also see that with vocalists versus guitarists or drummers. But with vocalists, sometimes they kind of get it from both sides and kind of bounce off of guitarists and drummers.
Yeah. And again, people can be in different roles too.
Just like the bassists, they tend to actually think a little bit like the guitar and like the drums if they're really good bassists.
You got to be the glue between the two. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm neither. I'm not a guitarist or a drummer.
But you know how to work with both.
And I could play it on TV if I had to. I could fake it.
Yeah.
So let's see the difference, Nina, of those 6 stringers and those drummers.
Yeah.
Neuroscience tells us with certainty that playing an instrument literally reshapes our brain. But something you might not know is that the way this actually happens is not the same for every instrument. So the brain of a guitar player and the brain of a drummer are rewiring themselves in completely distinct ways. And in today's video, I want to talk about what those cognitive differences actually are. Now, I have already done individual videos both on the brains of guitar players and the brains of drummers, and I will link them in the description box just in case you missed them. But several of you asked if I would do this specific comparison, so I thought it would be really fun to analyze, and I was pretty curious myself. Before we begin, however, I just wanted to clarify that none of these differences imply superiority in any way. And of course, all musical instruments have immense benefits for the brain, including the ones that we're not talking about today, which I do promise to address in future videos. I also want to point out here that most neuroscience research on music simply compares musicians to non-musicians or examines the effect of training on a singular instrument. There really aren't a lot of studies that directly compare different instrumentalists to one another. So because of that, this analysis comes from synthesizing findings across separate bodies of research and applying what we know about the specific cognitive and motor demands of each instrument, rather than relying on one study that explicitly measured guitar brain versus drum brain, if that makes sense. And of course, all of the citations for the studies that I used to make this video can be found in the description box, just in case you want to read them for yourself. Now, before we talk about how playing these instruments shape our brain, I think it's important to acknowledge that some of these differences were likely there before the instrument itself was even chosen. I have a whole video on this in case you want to dive deeper, but instrument selection is certainly not random. Our personality and how we're wired play a huge role. They aren't the only factors. Access and exposure matter, culture and role models matter, and practical constraints matter. But psychology matters too, and people absolutely come to instruments with pre-existing differences in temperament, motor preferences, attentional style, and how their own nervous system prefers to engage with sound and movement. It's not always the case, but most people are drawn to instruments that already fit how their mind and body work. And training in these instruments only amplifies those differences over time. But let's take a look at what those differences actually are. So the first difference we see is in the motor cortex, which is the strip of brain tissue that is responsible for voluntary movement. Research shows that guitarists tend to develop a highly specialized motor representation of the fingers on the fretting hand, with a larger and more detailed cortical map devoted to fine finger control. This allows for constant micro-adjustments during play. Drummers, by contrast, show a much more symmetrical and evenly distributed organization in the motor cortex. This is because their training emphasizes coordinated control across the arms, legs, and core, supporting timing, power, and multi-limb synchronization. So again, the difference isn't about skill, it's about how the motor cortex chooses to allocate its resources. One is optimized for precision at a very small scale, and the other for integrating many movements into a single action. The next area where we see meaningful differences is in the corpus callosum, which is the large bundle of nerve fibers that connects the left and right hemispheres of the brain and allows them to communicate. For guitarists, the study showed that this connection supports a kind of division of labor between the hands, the fretting hand, which handles precise spatial positioning, and the strumming or picking hand that controls timing and force. So the corpus callosum helps to synchronize these specialized roles. Now for drummers, this connection actually supports something closer to parallel processing. This is essential since drumming requires all four limbs to move both independently and together, often at extremely high speeds. In fact, studies suggest that drummers tend to show stronger connectivity here than guitarists, which likely allows for faster communication between hemispheres so the brain can keep all four limbs locked into the same rhythmic framework. So in practical terms, in this region of the brain, I think the basic difference here is between integration and independence. The guitarist's brain excels at integration, taking two specialized differing roles and fusing them into one cohesive action, whereas the drummer's brain excels at independence, keeping multiple streams of information distinct so that all four limbs can operate autonomously without interfering with one another. The next region that showed clear differences was the hippocampus, which plays a major role in long-term memory formation and spatial navigation. Not surprisingly, for guitarists, this area appears to adapt to the spatial demands of the fretboard. Because the neck functions like a grid, research shows that this area of the brain starts to build a detailed internal map of the strings, frets, and patterns, essentially turning playing into a form of neural navigation. Drummers, however, rely a lot less on visual spatial mapping and a lot more on procedural memory. Studies suggest that instead of relying on the hippocampus to navigate a layout, their brain shifts resources to the motor centers, specifically regions like the basal ganglia. This allows them to encode the physical feel of repeated movements and rhythmic sequences. This works because they really don't need to memorize where something is, they just need to know how a pattern feels when it's executed correctly. In simple terms, it's a matter of the brain prioritizing either spatial intelligence or kinesthetic intelligence, depending on the demands of the instrument. Okay, the next changes we can see are in the cerebellum, which is involved with things like timing, coordination, and error correction. Studies suggest that for guitarists, this region specifically adapts for sequencing. The more we practice, the more it becomes obsessed with syntax, making sure that rapid-fire notes occur in precise logical order. For drummers, however, the cerebellum adapts specifically for prediction. Research shows that it actually focuses on the space between the beats and constantly micro-corrects the tempo so it never wavers. This allows the brain to not just keep time, but also to enforce stability. Ultimately, I think this just reflects a difference between structure and regulation. The guitarist excels at logic of order and step-by-step progression, whereas the drummer excels at the discipline of pace and holding it all together when things get chaotic. I think the most interesting differences, however, can be found in the prefrontal cortex. This is basically the CEO of our entire brain. It's the center for things like decision-making, planning, and conscious self-monitoring. Believe it or not, research on improvisation shows that with time, guitarists can actually learn to temporarily reduce activity here, which, despite how it sounds, is truly a huge asset. By shutting down their inner editor in this way, they can enter a flow state that allows for spontaneous creativity. In contrast, the drummer's brain rewires itself for inhibitory control. To maintain a steady beat and resist the urge to rush, it strengthens the networks that regulate impulses, essentially creating an entire system of intense neurological discipline. So in everyday life, these changes might start to translate into differences in things like creative ideation and sustained regulation under pressure. But one final difference that I need to mention is in the auditory cortex itself. While we often talk about training by ear, what we're actually training is the brain's sound processing center. The study showed that guitarists develop higher gray matter density in regions linked to pitch and harmonic structure, while drummers show sharper neural coding for temporal precision and rhythmic onset. So, in other words, the brain isn't just learning to help us move differently, it's physically adapting to hear differently, which is actually pretty amazing. So, what is the bottom line here? Well, when we look at the neuroscience, we really don't see one brain that is better than the other. We see two brains that have solved the problem of making music in completely different ways. Both are shaped by the instrument, but again, both are also shaped by the person who chose it. The main thing I notice when analyzing all of this research is that across all of these brain regions, the exact same theme keeps showing up. Guitar training pushes the brain towards precision, structure, and internal mapping, while drumming pushes the brain towards timing, coordination, and real-time regulation of the body. And while there's obviously some crossover, these are some pretty significant distinctions that reflect how different musical demands sculpt the brain over time, as well as amplify the tendencies that we already have. And yes, of course, variables like genre, practice style, and whether we spend more time composing or performing could slightly shift these patterns. But even with those variables, these divergent neurological signatures really are undeniable. But that is it for the analysis. I hope you enjoyed it. It was definitely a labor of love. And even though I am personally a guitar player, I think I was able to stay relatively unbiased, as I would actually love to play drums at some point in the future. And as always, I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this and which of these instruments that you play, so definitely let me know down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.
Nice. Gotta love it. And that's the thing, is even when there are differences in the brain, and even though you can use, drummers can play guitar and guitarists can play drums, but the idea is that over long periods of time, if you are intensely focused on that instrument, it will cause these changes over time.
And Nina, I believe you could play anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And your research kicks ass. I love the idea of psychology and neurology on the creative mind. I would love to see those brains actually in real time, the explosions going on in the frontal versus the back when it comes to the percussionist. It's got to be amazing to see.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing is those kinds of visualizations. It all depends on whether they're looking at, I think they use oxygen, oxygenation as one of the things that they can show the different regions firing at different times. So it's something where you don't get a precise like at that spot this is going to happen. So you have to really, it's about how you're looking at the information and what you're seeing. But the idea is important that the different areas of the brain will rewire for the demands that you're putting on it.
Yes.
And the more intensely you're putting those demands on, the more those regions will rewire over time.
Yeah, the brain is incredibly malleable when it comes to function, and I need more power, Captain.
Yeah, we've got some extra over here. Send it over.
Put it in the frontal cortical lobe.
And in the area that does deal with the communication between the hemispheres, that is an area that sees a lot of extra activity in people who are, whether it's ambidextrous or good with both hands or doing activities such as they were saying with the guitar stuff, where
which
you're
lends
synchronizing
to the
the hands.
skill. If both your hands work simultaneously that way, you're a better guitarist. You have to be.
Yeah, and it comes over time. Like when you first start playing guitar, if you're starting to work with the pick, the notes that as you're fretting the note and as you're picking the note, that has to be the same time. So when you start trying to play faster than you're capable of at the time, it starts to sound really sloppy and it falls apart fast. And now you have to get that speed up over time.
You know what's funny? I was having a discussion the other night about strumming on guitar and the approach that a guitarist has to take on this side of their brain, and thinking about like how the drummer is perceiving things and trying to keep precision and like that certain aspect of drumming that requires that like focused state like that. With a guitarist who's like got advanced strumming techniques, actually starts triggering percussive neurons.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the other things while I'm in the car, I was talking about the bass stuff on the seatbelt, right? I'm also thinking about if I'm listening to something and it's got a guitar part that I like, and it's got a lot of the not the chirp chords, but a lot of muted chord strikes. So chukka,
chukka, chukka, chukka. Yeah, the chukka chukkas. I chukka chukka in my head all day.
Well, that's the thing is I started chukka chukkaing with my picking hand to like, I'm just saying, okay, if I had a guitar in my hand right now, would that be a down chuck or an up chuck?
Don't up chuck. He doesn't like to clean that shit.
Yeah, no. But the idea being that, like, if at the beginning of a song, you're like, okay, that would start with a down. So, down, up, and then down for the first thing, down, up, down.
And in her analysis there, the thing when it comes to the guitarist, the lead ones, the ones that she was talking about where they get into a zone and they improvise in a certain way that percussionists don't tend to do that unless they're jazz ones, because they do. But the guitarist who gets into that kind of lead zone and isn't doing as much on the chukka chukka and keeping time. It's more like, mentality.
Right.
That's the big difference between guitar and drummer brain here.
Yeah, and as she mentioned, that was more of the silencing of the inner editor is the way she described it there, and I like that because that is like the inner critic, like shutting down the inner critic, where you're just allowing. That was what we were saying about the dance like
being fearless. Yeah,
dance like nobody's watching, play like nobody's listening. Like that's the turning off the editor, saying I'm just going to play what I'm going to play, and you're not going to sit here and analyze every note and be like, no, don't hit that one because that might sound wrong. You're just I'm gonna play it. We're going to do it. We're locked in. We're going. And then when we're done, we can analyze what happened and which things we liked and didn't like about what happened. But we're going to go just into that flow state,
And whether you're doing that, say, by yourself as you're experimenting and trying shit out, or you do it with groups of musicians, possible audience, and you're noodling in a room, basically. But, if you're really comfortable with your instrument, you can try out crazy shit. Sometimes that's how the next great song gets made.
Yeah. And to me, it's like, if you know your scales really well and you know exactly what notes you're supposed to play for, this song, and you're bored with what you're playing, well, you also know what notes you're not supposed to play. So pick one of those and throw that in somewhere, or throw in, three of them, three chromatic notes in a row. Like two of those are definitely ones you're not supposed to always play. So, throw in a chromatic run here and there, and all of a sudden you're throwing in notes that are technically not in the scale, not in the key, but you're allowed to use them in a passing context like that.
In a good band writing situation, it's good to have at least one member of that band who looks for ways to spice things up and add that like dynamic. And whether it is the bassist, the guitarist, the drummer, sometimes the singer is the spicer. It's like, I want to sing like this. It would be cool if you did this little run. I'll say this line. And if one person in the band spices the recipe for good songwriters, one person kind of making sure that like any fancy stuff we don't ignore.
Yep. Can't ignore any of it. And psychology of rock.
And if you're doing it right, it gives each band member opportunities, because sometimes you need bass spice, sometimes you need guitar spice, and shit, drummers, you guys can go nuts anytime you do it. It's spicy. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And every once in a while, you got to throw in that "They Call Me Al" bass, that sick bass drop.
Yeah, he's one of the Call Me Al guy.
Paul Simon.
Paul Simon. Him, Peter Gabriel. They came from a time period of music that was classic.
Yep, gotta love it.
So, Nina, I love your job. I love your information. Part of the creativity is a mental thing, an explosion thing, and part of it is a physical thing, a psychological thing, and the research you're doing is incredible.
Love it.
And now we're going to take control, because Toontrack says so.
All right.
I am a big fan of actually their entire suite. The only one I don't really use a lot is the Easy Mix, just because I'm constantly trying to learn mine and perfect it, and you can't go using something like that and learning what you need to do at the same time. But when it comes to their Easy Drums, by far everybody out there probably has had experience at it, or
know somebody who does.
Yeah, or the open source version, which follows the same approach as Easy Drums. They're easy bass, easy keys. All of these can help in your songwriting process, especially if you like to do chords, like the unison chord pack approach that we've done.
Yep.
Things like Easy Keys is basically like having the chord pack in a nice tool that can actually work with the other products.
Yeah. One thing I loved about those chord packs or having just, chord progressions, common chord progressions just thrown at you like that, is just throw them on and just start noodling over top, and you see how you react to different chord progressions and which things you like about where your lead lines go when these changes happen.
Yeah, and when it gets into things like the chord, whether it's arpeggiating this way or whether it's a nice chord hold, imagine going to band practice and being able to just tell your bandmates, like, okay, let's try it this way. I don't like it. I do it this way. You're lucky you've got Jeff Beck. The rest of us need something like Easy Keys.
Exactly. Or even like we talked about another time, Band in a Box, and that whole type of situation where it's also getting you the same kind of a thing, assistance with getting your musical ideas out.
Yeah. And these aren't AI. These are MIDI driven pattern generators, and just like arpeggiators and all that good stuff. That stuff isn't AI. It isn't cheating. Hell, I love my arpeggiator. I'm trying to learn how to really use it.
There you go.
And when it comes to these Toontrack products, they can help you to get the pieces and parts that you're looking to do and arrange them. And in some cases, they do have a magic button that says analyze this audio track and come up with a bass line to it, which is impressive. And its bass lines do not suck.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, like we talked about before, baseline writing can be pretty easy if you're keeping it relatively simple. But also if you're telling it to analyze the song, you're already telling it, you're already cheating, as far as like, if I get on stage with musicians that I've never played with before, I'm writing a bass line on the spot, reacting to the people like real time right now. Whereas in this case, you're getting it after the fact. You're getting, hey, here's the output after I've already listened to everything that is going to happen in the song, So good in that way.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to use these like live on stage. This is what we do to establish this, to have a whole band. And it's like, hey, here's the part we're looking for. If you actually want to do it a little different, knock yourself out, just make sure it sounds as good or better.
And it's also, if you're in a band writing and you're in a part where you guys are stuck, you're trying to write something and you don't like what's been going on, blah, you're in a funk or whatever, you can use something like this to just get a new idea and get it kickstarted, and then either start from there or it'll get you on a path to trying something different.
That's where this comes in real handy, because it is like the dice method. Randomize.
Yeah, exactly.
Randomize. Here's 4 chords. Randomize the approach.
Yeah, exactly. And we're gonna do that one night. We're gonna do the Yahtzee, where I got the dice right over here. A little pocket Yahtzee here, and roll them out there. Okay, we got a 6, a 4, a 2, and a 5. All right, that sounds good.
Hey, Josh, welcome.
Yo.
Yeah, we're about to look at the Toontrack products across the board and how they actually work together. Me and May were watching it last night, and he was like, holy shit, you can do this. Would I don't have to export it, bring it back into the different product. There's actually integration between all of these. It's right from the mothership at Toontrack, and this is a demonstration of the workflow of going from like a drum beat in Easy Drummer to a piano part in Easy Keys to a bass part with both of those. And next thing you know, the Easy Mix makes it all sound cool.
Nice. I like it.
Toontrack instruments give you control at every step of the process, from each individual articulation in Easy Drummer 3, or every single note in Easy Keys and Easy Bass, all the way to the extreme granular tonal control that's offered in Superior Drummer 3. You can write your music however you decide. So with that in mind, all of Toontrack's songwriting tools share the same goal, and that's to allow you the ability to write music more efficiently. But at every step of the process, you can easily change any aspect of the performance that you like. Take this drum beat that I found with Easy Drummer 3's Tap to Find. It's a simple pop beat, but I want to customize the accents in a very specific place to match an idea for a chord progression that I have in my head. The first step is to drag it to the song track so that I can open up the grid editor and edit the notes. I also want to add a specific type of fill to the end of the beat. I could search for fills in my MIDI library, but because this is an extremely simple idea, I'll just tap it in to Tap to Find again and let Easy Drummer search for the drum fill. I'll trim the beginning of the file with a quick edit. Now that my drum beat is there, I'll add a chord progression on piano with Easy Keys too. The whole idea for this piano part is centered around syncopated chords that hit right before the beat. So I drew in the rhythm that I wanted on the song track, and then I'll use the Suggest Chords feature to find the right progression for this rhythm. Here, I can just start experimenting with different chords until I find something that I like. And because the key of the song is set below, Easy Keys only suggests chords that fit into the key. You can click the Randomize option to generate a chord progression. or you can just click the chords yourself. If something is close but not quite right, open the chord wheel and you can change the octave, inversion, or add harmonic variations of the chords. And if you want to customize even further, you can open the grid editor to access the individual MIDI notes to change the rhythm or their velocities. To fill out the piano part, I'll add a second instance of easy keys and create a simple repeating melody by dragging one of the ostinatos from the MIDI library to the song track. Again, once it's on the song track, I can adjust it however I need to fit my track. Here, I'll change the chord by moving it up a few octaves, and finally, I'll delete some of the bass notes. The last thing I'll do with this piano is load one of the included pad presets, and then add some additional effects in EasyMix to turn it into a spacey, droning type of sound. For the bass line, I already have the chord progression in Easy Keys, so all I have to do is drag the MIDI from Easy Keys to the Easy Bass Drums and Keys tab to generate a bass line. When you drag in piano MIDI, you can either choose the left hand of the piano or the rhythm and chords, but for this simple chord progression, they're basically the same, so I'll just choose the left hand and drag it to the song track. The important part here is that although Easy Bass generated the bass line based on my piano, you can change it however you like. Here I could open Edit Playstyle and change the amount of notes, the length of notes, or the damping. But in this case, I'll use a different method to make the rhythm of the bass more interesting. I'll open Easy Drummer, and this time I'll drag the drum groove to the Easy Bass Drums and Keys tab to extract the drum rhythm. By editing this on the song track, I can choose when the bass follows the drums and when it follows the keys. I'll make a quick edit and then option drag this rhythm under the long sustained chords so that the bass line is more interesting in these spaces. The notes automatically conform to the chords that I've already added in the chord layer. And now, all of a sudden, I have the foundation of a pop song. Now comes the fun part, layering and designing sounds. I want this track to have a more modern electronic feel, so I'll start by layering in some synths. I can just duplicate the bass track and then change the sound library. Toontrack has tons of different expansion sound libraries for all of our products, so for the bass, I'll load up a preset from the Synth Bass EBX. I'll do something similar for the main piano sound. I'll duplicate the track again, and this time load a sound from the Time Machine Easy Keys expansion library. For the master bus, I'll use one of the AI-assisted mastering chains in EasyMix 3. Just load it on your master and select AI Mastering, and then analyze your track. All of the most important parameters for dialing in the sound are controlled with the effects sliders, so that you can dial in the preset for your specific track. At Toontrack, we're always focused on finding new ways to inspire creativity and bring our and your ideas to life in a way that still allows us to be the authors of our own music. Our tools are not writing tracks for you, because where's the fun in that? But instead, we're making the idea process more efficient and, most importantly, fun. So try it out for yourself with the fully functional 10-day trials available on Toontrack.com.
Oh, and if you try any of those trials, it doesn't take 10 days to realize how useful those tools are.
And the fact that they give you 10 days is always a bonus. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you need to give people a chance to feel it out. And the beauty of all their products is it takes about an hour to play around with it, explore the initial offerings. And look, they got winter deals going on right now. Their expansion sets and their extra libraries. If you're really looking for a certain genre that's not typical, they've got expansion libraries that cover everything, every kind of drum beat, every kind of sound, keyboard approach.
Nice. Definitely some good stuff there.
I mean, I have played with every one of these products at one point or another. The superior line is where if you want like top end drums, superior drummer kicks everything's ass. It's huge though. You're going to need another hard drive.
Well, I might not need another hard drive, but most people would need another hard drive.
Oh, they got sales on everything going on now.
Sure.
And that was at Toontrack over on YouTube. Another nice thing about their products is there's tons of tutorials that in less than an hour, you understand what you're working with. And like he said, this isn't making the music for you. It's helping you to arrange it and construct it, which I don't want to work too hard putting my Lego house together. I want them to snap in.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to take the tools out of the way of the process of, because a lot of times the creative process can get, short circuited. Like you had a great idea, you're trying to get it down, and something in the process, something about the tracks or the layers or whatever, like something is not going right. And all of a sudden the idea no longer is getting through,
Nothing sucks more than like writing a song one night and feeling it that night and knowing that song that you want to write and not doing it totally in that night. And then coming back in the workflow and the process, sometimes you just want to be able to just cruise control through it.
Exactly.
All the things that the Toontrack products do help to just kind of get that foundation so that when you do go to band practice and it's like, hey, I wrote this last night and this is what I was thinking.
Yeah. And you can come up with something that's an actual demo, essentially.
Yeah. Even though, Glenn, I might need you to re-record that bass, but
I'll do it.
Here's what it sounds like up till now.
Exactly.
Oh, I know you will.
Yeah. Got to do it. There you go.
Slow slap.
Yeah, got to do it. But we're always here on a Thursday doing the thing, making sure we keep you guys informed. And again, with the AI stuff, it's going to be coming fast and furious all year. So we're going to have lots of updates on all that from a lot of the channels that we've already seen and new channels that we find as time goes on.
And with the identity stuff and the tech legislation that's actually going on, that I know the rest of the legislation gets boring, but that tech stuff actually should be covered.
Yeah. And again, I mean, I'm not trying to defend things or anything. I like to try to look at it from a standpoint. There was a reason that they started looking into this, and there's, the whole de-anonymizing, I think, is important. I think that's something that has a lot to do with
I'm not questioning their reasoning. I'm questioning their approach.
the execution. Sure.
Do they think that this is the right approach to how they're trying to solve this problem?
Yep. And again, we said, if you put it as optional so many times, it would be a kid setting it up, and the option would basically be out the window. So that's why they're looking at that's why I see it as them looking at making it as a mandate.
Yeah, well, I think right now they're just they are feeling the waters and just putting some things out there and seeing, can we legislate this and do this? Or if we try to do this, are they going to yell at us until we stop? So hopefully they figure that out, just like Discord is figuring that out.
Yeah. And again, we just saw that the one in California, that's already on the books. And the one in Colorado, that's the one that's coming up that is kind of raising the awareness of the one that's already on the books. But one is already on the books. So, we have to already deal with something there. And the question is, is it so recent that it could still get struck down or be appealed or what have you? I don't know. But my guess is if it's already on the books, it's on the books. And it's a question of enforcement now.
If any state could pull off something, I mean, Colorado's trying to do it, but if any state can actually pull it off and possibly set precedents, Cali, Texas, Florida, they tend to be the
forerunners, maybe.
Yeah, the ones who can this work. California does have a lot of unique laws, especially when it comes to gas and all of that. We cleared up smog because of laws.
Well, you also mentioned how
much
much
this is a different kind of smog.
But you also mentioned how many of the big tech giants are out there. So the laws that are being made out there are heavily influenced by lobbyists from those companies who make sure the legislators understand where they're, what they need as far as that goes.
My biggest question is if you're going to find a company who's not in that state, how do you go after a foreign software company for violation when they're not actually in the state where the law applies? So
that's the question. I mean,
somebody's got to explain that.
The internet is interesting in that way. In that it's a global marketplace, but the question is, everyone is responsible to the local, where things are happening. So it's where the commerce happens, where the commerce laws have to apply, right? So, if things are being bought and sold, they have to adhere to the local laws of where they're being bought and sold.
If a business has a tough time doing business because the state they're in is costing them more than if they're over here,
they'll move.
Businesses move, and they do it all the time.
And that is one of the ways where, if they make a bad law that is, directly bad for businesses of a certain type, they will see those businesses leave the state, and they may decide that they need to change that because they've caused a mass exodus, for example.
My biggest concern is trying to deal with international things like the internet at a state by state level. This isn't kids game legislation here. We're not trying to just deal with something that's in our own country or in our own state. We're trying to deal with something that's completely international, and there's no internet police. I know we want to believe there is. The ones who consider themselves the internet police aren't telling you that they're the internet police. They're just doing it.
Yeah. And again, there are certain things that need to be policed on the internet, and there are certain things that just the internet polices itself in certain ways.
But who watches the Watchman? If I see weird shit going on that way, I just like our first channel tonight. That's the kind of tech journalism that I hope keeps track of that.
Yeah, exactly. Got to keep the finger on the pulse.
Yes, somebody's got to watch.
What else going on next week?
Well, hopefully that second storm that's going to you guys doesn't nail
it's gonna,
it's
gonna we're gonna have a lot of snow, that's for sure. But we're used to it. We can get out of it. I've got the big snow brush, or we've got the big shovel. I even brought the big ice chipper out last time because I waited a couple of days and thought it was going to be a solid ice block, but it was actually kind of the fluffier stuff with a little bit of the wet stuff on top. So I was able to get it all cleared off pretty quick.
I figured you were going to have like an igloo on top of your
I
car.
did. Oh, I did. What I pulled out, the igloo's still there. Like I was able to dig just, the one spot I got out of just dug out the front. The other spot I got out of just dug out the back. But in both cases, as I pulled out, you could literally see the outline of the car in where I pulled out of. But it wasn't a full igloo because the whole, front collapsed in and all that. But there are mountains in between all the spots because they can't, you can't get all the cars out of the way enough to do a full plowing. And if they said, hey, we're going to plow next week, there's nowhere you can put all the cars in order to do the plowing.
Yeah. They'd have to have a perfect moment.
So we just accept that that's the way it goes, but we managed to work around it. And people drive like idiots, but still, we managed to work around it.
Well, thankfully, you're not an idiot. That would just be another one on the road.
I would be a big idiot. That'd be no good.
So we'll be back Monday with Wally. Tuesday, we'll be getting 2 more classic interviews of Ange. Wednesday, whipping it out, and we'll be back next Thursday. Definitely keeping my eye on all this IT.
That's right. And we'll talk about all the IT right here next Thursday.
The IT is going to hit the fan.
Yeah. And we'll see you all then.
Night, everyone.
See you.
We cover digital audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear, and 82. How to arrange, compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac, and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much rap. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn.